There's something about the night shift that nobody tells you before you take the job. It's not the boredom. It's not the exhaustion. It's not even the strange hours your body starts keeping after a few weeks of flipping your sleep schedule upside down. It's the silence. Because silence at 2 in the morning isn't the same as silence at 2 in the afternoon. During the day, silence just means quiet. But at night, silence means you'd hear it if something moved. It means you'd hear a footstep, a door, a breath. And sometimes you do. Tonight, I have 3 stories from people who learned that lesson the hard way. All of them were just doing their jobs. All of them were alone. And all of them came face to face with something they were never supposed to see. Let's get into it. I want to start with a trucker. 20 years on the road, coast to coast, over and over, the same highways, the same truck stops, the same long empty stretches of nothing in between. After 2 decades of this, almost nothing surprised him anymore. Almost. He was about 20 hours into a cross-country haul when a storm rolled in. Heavy rain, low visibility. The kind of weather that makes a long drive feel even longer. He was already scanning ahead for somewhere to pull off and sleep for a few hours when something caught his eye in the mirror. Headlights, right behind him. Now, on a normal night, that wouldn't mean anything. But the road behind him had been empty for miles. Flat, straight, totally clear. There was no way those lights had been there, and he just missed them. They appeared. Suddenly, like the vehicle had materialized out of the dark and planted itself inches from his trailer. He watched the mirror. The car came up fast. Too fast. And then it got so close that it disappeared beneath his trailer. Completely swallowed up by the blind spot. Only the glow of the headlights bouncing off the wet asphalt told him it was still there. Then the lights shut off. He kept driving. He didn't speed up, didn't slow down, just kept his pace and kept watching. No lights, no movement he could track, just rain and dark and the unsettling certainty that something was behind him. He just couldn't see it anymore. A sign ahead told him a truck stop was 5 miles out. He focused on that. 5 miles. Just make it 5 miles. When he finally pulled in, the lot was nearly empty. A couple of trucks at the pumps. No sign of any car following him in. He pulled to the far side of the lot, parked, and took a long, slow breath. He cracked the door and leaned out into the rain, looking back along the side of his trailer. Nothing there. He told himself it was nothing. Someone messing around on the highway. He locked up, grabbed his blanket, and let the sound of the rain on the roof pull him down into sleep. He doesn't know how long he was out when the thump woke him. One hit, hard, like a fist against the side of the trailer. He sat up and looked out the windshield. Rain. Dark. He reached for the door handle, cracked it open, and peered out. 2 men, moving around near the back of the trailer. They had no lights, no vests, nothing. Just 2 figures in the dark, doing something he couldn't quite make out. He hesitated. Just a second. Just long enough to think about whether he should step out or stay put. That was when the door slammed into him. Someone shoved it from the outside, hard, driving the metal edge into his shoulder and knocking him back across the seat. A man appeared in the doorway, hoodie, face half covered, and he didn't say much, just told him to stay where he was. One hand buried in the front pocket of his hoodie. 2 more men behind the trailer. So he stayed. He sat in the driver's seat, completely still, and he waited. The man outside kept his eyes on him the entire time. Didn't look away once. Then, for reasons he still doesn't fully understand, they ran, just turned and bolted back to their car and tore out of the lot like someone had fired a starter pistol. He sat in the dark for another moment, hands shaking, listening to the rain. Then he picked up his phone and called 911. The police took a report, pulled some footage from the truck stop cameras. But the men were never identified, never found. No plates on the car. No faces visible on the footage. To this day, he doesn't know what they wanted. He doesn't know if they planned to rob the cargo or rob him or something worse. What he does know is that the moment he hesitated, the moment he chose to stay in that cab instead of stepping out, was the moment that kept him alive. Because if he'd gotten out, those men would have been between him and the door. This one comes from a woman who worked night shifts at a 7-Eleven. She was in her mid-20s at the time, doing online school, picking up overnight shifts because they were slow and quiet and gave her time to study. Most nights it was uneventful. The occasional customer, the hum of the refrigerators, the glow of her laptop screen. It was a cold, rainy night when a man came in. Mid-30s, beard, short hair. Nothing remarkable about him. He walked the aisle for a minute, then left without buying anything. She went back to her work. 30 minutes later, he came back. This time he walked straight to the counter. Before she could say anything, he asked about the restroom. She pointed him toward it, and he went in. One of those single-occupancy bathrooms. One person, one lock. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. She wasn't sure whether to knock, whether to say something, whether she was just overthinking it. So she waited. 25 minutes after he'd gone in, a police cruiser pulled slowly into the lot. She watched it circle once, then stopped directly behind the man's car. The officer got out, studied the vehicle for a long moment, then came inside. He looked around, looked at her, and asked if she knew who owned the car out front. The way he asked it, the urgency underneath the calm, made her stomach drop. She pointed at the bathroom door and said he'd been in there a while. The officer didn't hesitate. He went straight to the door and started banging. No answer. He turned to her and asked for a key. She dug through the drawer under the counter, hand shaking slightly, and handed it over. The officer unlocked the door and pushed it open with his weapon drawn. The bathroom was empty. She couldn't process it at first. She'd watched him walk in. She'd been sitting right there the whole time. There was only one door, and yet the room was completely empty. Then the officer looked up. The ceiling, drop tiles, the kind you can push out from below. One of them was shifted slightly out of place. The officer called for backup, and within 15 minutes they'd searched the building above the drop ceiling and found a man hiding in the crawl space. When they brought him out, the officer told her the rest. This man had been on the run for hours. Earlier that same night, he had attacked multiple people, random, unconnected individuals who were alone in the dark. A woman leaving work late, a man walking home. The police had picked up his license plate on a camera at another store and had been tracking the car ever since. Whether he had gone into that bathroom to hide from the police, or whether, knowing he was cornered, he had climbed into the ceiling with her in mind, no one could say for certain. The officer made it clear that everyone this man had encountered that night had been alone. That was the pattern. Alone and at night. She had been exactly that. She never worked another overnight shift after that night. And honestly, no one who hears this story can blame her. The last story takes place during winter. The narrator worked from home, customer support, overnight live chat, warm apartment, coffee on the desk, YouTube on the second monitor. Comfortable, routine, unremarkable. It was around 2 a.m. when she heard a man's voice outside her house. She was in the middle of a support chat and couldn't get up right away. So she sat there and listened. The voice called out for help. Again and again. She finished the chat, went to window, and peeked through the blinds at her backyard. A man was standing in the middle of it. Her backyard was fenced in. He was just standing there, calling out like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just climbed over someone's fence to stand in their yard in the middle of the night. She watched him for a moment. He wasn't moving. He wasn't trying to get to the door, just standing there, yelling into the dark. She decided to leave it alone. Probably drunk. Probably harmless. She walked away from the window, and he immediately stopped yelling. The sudden silence was worse than the noise had been, like he'd been watching for the moment she left the glass. She went back upstairs and got another customer. She was in the middle of typing a response when the knocking started. Not a polite knock. A hollow, hard bang on the back door. She went to the hallway and looked toward it. Even from that distance, she could see his face press against the glass. Features flattened, staring straight at her. She called the police. She stood in the hallway and described what she was seeing. And then, slowly, the man backed away from the door. He walked through the yard, climbed the fence, and that's when she saw them. Figures. moving in the darkness on the other side of the fence. Several of them, standing in the gap between the panels, barely visible, just shapes in the dark, completely still, watching her house. The man at the door hadn't come alone. She reported everything she saw, and police responded. They believed the man at the door was meant to get her to open it. Make her think it was just one confused person who needed help. Once the door was open, the others would have come through the fence. Whether this was random or targeted, she never found out. The group scattered before police arrived. No one was ever identified. She moved not long after that. The thing that sticks with her, and the thing that sticks with me, is how normal it started. A voice calling for help, in the middle of the night in the rain, because most people's instinct is to help. That's the whole point. It's not always a stranger with a knife in a dark alley. Sometimes it's a voice outside your window asking for exactly what you want to give. And that's what makes it so terrifying. 3 different jobs, 3 different nights, 3 people who were just trying to get through their shift. What gets me every time with stories like these is how thin the margin is. A trucker who happened to stay in his cab instead of stepping out. A gas station worker who happened to still be there when a cop pulled in. A woman who happened to look through the fence at exactly the right moment. Change one of those details, and these aren't horror stories anymore. They're just gone. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching. If any of these hit close to home, or if you've got your own story, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Stay safe out there. And maybe, just maybe, lock your doors tonight.